Hi there everyone, this is Laura Elizabeth, founder of the Chakra Intuition System, virtualtarotschool.com and Flagstaff Yoga Festival. We're going to be doing a reading today that might come up for a few people during the next week or so of October 2014. We're in a period astrologically referred to as Mercury Retrograde. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on while I'm going over this reading suggestion with you guys, because what Mercury retrograde has a tendency to do is Mercury governs all sorts of things to do with the realm of communication, right? And what tends to break down, in a sense, like it's trying to reshuffle or reorder, so things get broken so that new things can grow and arise and be fixed, and all of that is appliances and communication devices tend to have issues during Mercury retrograde periods. And generally, communication breakdowns interpersonally, as well as, with devices like printers or iPads, you can have issues going on with those things during Mercury retrograde. People often also experience communication breakdown interpersonally. And when this happens, a lot of us have old kind of wounds resurface to do with feelings of being taken advantage of, not listened to, not allowed to speak, whatever it is. All of those hurts that we've kind of patched up in our energetic world of the energy body, we've kind of patched these things over, or we've healed them on a level. But these things are all to do with communication breakdowns, and so they can resurface during times of Mercury retrograde for all of us. So today's reading and notes on the reading that I'm going to be sharing with you here today, I'm calling Conquering Doormat Syndrome. And what that means is basically, when I refer to doormat syndrome, it is that sort of hangover from having a past that included an experience of being a doormat somewhere along the way, right? So for myself, I look at women in my family, right? And many of us have women in our families that have been through experiences at one point in their life or another that have just very frankly left them feeling like a doormat, feeling walked all over or taken advantage of, right? So that lingering feeling of being taken advantage of, what I'm calling doormat syndrome here, is something that I find really kind of feeds the communication weirdness of most Mercury retrograde cycles, because when people either misunderstand or feel misunderstood, very often they can end up feeling a bit taken advantage of. And that can kind of trigger their doormat syndrome, which is sort of their hangover from whatever experience they've had in life of feeling that way, feeling like a doormat, feeling taken advantage of. And so Mercury retrograde then kind of triggers people to actually start feeling taken advantage of. And then we get a whole other cycle of miscommunication, kind of like an outer layer of an onion inside a core of an onion, an inner layer that's really the seed or the core of an issue. Then we have all of these reactions to that weirdness, and then we have reactions to the reactions, and we have reactions to the reactions to the reactions, and so on and so forth. So doormat syndrome kind of describes that cycle of miscommunication through that lens. If you have a tendency to have been taken advantage of in the past, what you are going to very naturally do, it's actually quite healthy when you think about it, is your unconscious mind on a level is going to start to try very, very hard to avoid situations in the future that are also going to have you feel that way, right? So things that you may have let slide in the personality of someone 5 years ago or 10 years ago in your life, now, 5 or 10 years later, that same personality trait that you would have accepted and tried to work with in a friend, 10 years ago, all of a sudden, because of your prior experiences, you form a rule, and the rule is, I don't allow that energy into my life at all, period. It's just easier that way, right? So we all have kind of reactions that build kind of into more steadfast rules with how we stay on top of doormat syndrome. As we get older, we obviously become more artful with social experiences. So what we're going to do today is we're going to examine a couple of triggers that I've noticed in my own life going off that are kind of bringing up my symptoms of doormat syndrome. The ones that I've noticed this week that I've been calling out on myself, that I've been extra careful to notice in myself when they arise. So I'm going to show you those, but what I really want you to pay attention to is the similarities that this might have with your own experience of Mercury retrograde, cycles. So if you have experienced, really identifying with the archetype of the doormat individual, the individual who has been taken advantage of so much that they feel walked on. If that has ever come up in a big way in your past, you're going to want to pay attention to this reading, because this reading is a process for you with which to heal and rebalance and really keep that in check so that it doesn't handicap or impinge you in the rest of your life. Sometimes our trials leave us sort of damaged. And when that happens, it really impedes our future progress and our actions and our outcomes in the future, because it limits our behavior and what we will even put ourselves in front of in the past. So what this process does, this reading that I'm going to be showing you here, is it's a flow process, which means the center of this reading style is really to check in a very authentic, real way with how you really are doing, how you really are feeling with any situation or experience that you're encountering and choosing to read on. How are you doing with it really? And it has you really check in with that, so that you can really start examining those real things that are coming up in your emotional centers, because those emotion centers tie into the communication centers. And what this reading does is it kind of brings that sort of heart wound level stuff up to the throat chakra realm. So we are speaking it, hearing it, listening, thinking about it, mulling it over, working it through in our throat chakra reading by bringing it into the realm of communication, right? So the very nature of doing a good intuitive reading is to bring unknown information known and then communicate the message or the information that comes through, right? So it's all about communicating a message. That's the heart of every reading. So here we're really looking at primarily, bringing up anything that is unaware in the body that may actually be on a level energetically giving you a reaction. Okay, and I'll show you what we mean by that in just a second. So the one thing that definitely feels like it's up for me right now this week during this particular Mercury retrograde period is this deal with constantly feeling taken advantage of, and that's what we've been talking about. And we're probably, learning these lessons that the universe is kind of spelling out for us to learn at these times in kind of a snail's pace. We're probably really slow at learning these things from the universe's point of view, from divine intelligence's point of view. Humans are pretty slow learners, I think. But here are the situations that are really starting to feel that way for me. And what I did, and what I recommend you do if you would like to do a similar reading like this for yourself right now with a piece of paper and a pen, is I would go ahead and really pay attention to and ask yourself, or even list on a piece of paper for yourself. That would actually be ideal if you could write these down. Okay, it's a Mercury retrograde period, tell yourself. I know that at this time, some botched communications are going to happen. Maybe some of my devices or travel plans are going to have glitches. So, having that knowledge, and because of my prior experience, I know that for me personally, this might trigger all of these feelings that I'm calling doormat syndrome. Okay? And then what I want you to do on the piece of paper after you've acknowledged that statement in your own way is list anything now that you're really thinking about it, and you're really paying attention and you're really remembering what has happened today, what happened yesterday, what happened earlier this week. Think about your experience with today and yesterday and earlier this week through that lens of trying to pick out any situation that triggered anything in you vibrationally that looked or felt like doormat syndrome. Okay, so has anything been triggered this week that made you feel uncomfortable, like you were, putting a flag out to make sure that you weren't being taken advantage of, that kind of thing? And if so, list those experiences for yourself on this piece of paper. So I came up with two. I'll share my two with you, just kind of to go through this reading, but list your own and know that when you bring this reading forward, that's the cool thing about a flow process reading. The flow process really it gives you a prompt, just like I kind of gave you this prompt just now. Okay, so my prompt for you was, it's Mercury retrograde. Maybe this is hitting some doormat syndrome triggers in your energy body and in your emotions. Check out the last week, see if you see any incidences of that, and list them on this page for me. Okay, now the items, the experiences that you've had this week that may or may not have triggered anything like that in you, those are actually some of the cards that we're going to read on in this reading. We're actually going to draw a card for each of those experiences. So the flow process basically says, here's the prompt, and then the querent gives a result. And then the reader takes the querent's results and creates the start of a very spontaneous flow style reading from those triggers. So it's like I prompted you, you prompted me back with your answers, and then what happens is when you answer me, we come up with the questions that we actually do want to ask the cards, right? So it's a flow process because there isn't really a set spread in this way of reading as much as there's sort of a formula for going through a dialogue. And that dialogue is between you, any reader that's assisting you, and the tarot and the deck of oracle cards that you choose to use. So that process is what I call the flow style process. So right now I'll kind of go through the first example from my flow process reading on this syndrome within Mercury retrograde that we're starting to read about, this doormat syndrome. So this is more of a process of exploration for you than giving you a definite answer to some really specific problem, right? So a lot of people, when they come to an intuitive reading, they kind of have this idea that the reading is going to give them answers, right? It's just like hard and fast answers. So sometimes, for instance, I'll have people ask me, what a certain stock is going to do next week. Can the tarot tell me that? And the answer is, if you were a clear enough channel, absolutely. It absolutely could, because what the tarot is it's your own connection to divine wisdom. And if we're going to take that as its face, as whatever you call divine wisdom, whatever you call the creator force, the universe, God, whatever you call that, it seems that everyone and every intelligence that I talk to agrees that that is all-knowing, omniscient, right? So that's what we're tapping into through the vehicle of card readings. Card readings are kind of like the translation in the communication. It's the Rosetta Stone, and we get to see that that communication of the visual tarot cards when we lay them out, and then the reader interprets the message that the tarot seems to be giving. So the reader really is pretty much like an interpreter between you and your own unconscious mind, which is all-knowing, right? And so that's the process that I am leading people through when I do a flow-centered, flow-style reading. The other part of that is, with that knowledge then, the reading becomes choice-centered. It doesn't become about being told, you know, the ultimate destiny of anything. The ultimate destiny is changeable depending on our day-to-day choices. And our day-to-day choices affect our day-to-day actions. And of course, that is changing the future in every moment, because in every moment you have free will. You make choices in every moment that you live and breathe on this planet. Destiny is perpetually changing. And then there's 9 billion human souls, or whatever we're slated to hit this decade. And, you know, they all have free will on some level in every moment as well. So when someone divines the future, what it's really important to understand is that the future is simply a series of possibilities that could occur or could not occur, moving towards some way or another way, based on your actions, your thoughts, your intentions, your choices. Okay? So a flow process reading that is then also described as choice-centered, flow process choice-centered reading is what I had on that first slide for you, basically states that we acknowledge the free will that we have, and the reading is showing us things that we may want to bear into heavy consideration when we make our choices. That's what a tarot reading shows you, is what you might want to consider, what knowledge your divine, intuitive, unconscious had for you on any one subject that you should be considering when you make your conscious day-to-day choices. That's what a good reading will show you. So a good reading, you are energetically prompting a lifting of a card out of a deck. Okay, so at that level, the more awareness we have, the more work we've done when we go into choosing that card, the more amazing that reading is going to be, and the more capacity for really truly changing our lives that reading is going to have. Because when we're in process, we are active, we are in dialogue, almost like we are in a therapy session or a counseling session. It's really a healing session of some sort. So the process itself of the reading is actually a healing. The process itself of the reading here is transformation. Okay, so that was a really long introduction there. I'm going to give you my first example of how this doormat syndrome has been expressing for me this week. Okay, so I have this really beautiful home that I just moved into about 3 months ago. It was a real kind of happily ever after sort of feeling for me, because I'd gone through a year of real turmoil and having to sell the home that I had been in for the last 10 years. And I thought I was going to be staying there forever. So I had big surprises this year and had to move. But just a lot of conscious choice came into just bringing a really beautiful upgrade of a home on all levels into existence for me. So I have this beautiful home, but this week the jacuzzi, the central air conditioning, and the pellet stove all died on me. And so, you know, this is my direct example of what Mercury Retrograde has been doing in my life this week. And not having received much in the way of action about any of these issues over the weekend, to the point that I'm beginning to wonder, I'm just reading on the bottom here, this is a writing I wrote yesterday, and I have some updates for you today after doing the reading and bringing it through. So I'm beginning to wonder whether or not my landlords are even going to be lease compliant at all here. They haven't really responded all weekend. I wrote my flags are starting to go up here a bit, just to tread very, very carefully and not put up with being taken advantage of as a tenant. This isn't the first time I've had a tricky situation to navigate with this landlord, because when I first moved in this summer, there was an incredibly botched communication with my leasing agent about what our moving date is. We were caught with U-Haul vehicles mid-rental, an indoor cat with very few other options. And we were told that we were a day too early, even though the leasing agent himself emailed me that that was my supposed move-in date. I had that in writing. So I moved into a really dirty home after paying a non-refundable cleaning deposit, and I let that slide because of the miscommunication about the move-in date. I'm not sure if I should have let that slide, but there you have it. I don't really enjoy any level of drama in my life, and since overall I love the home and would even like to purchase it from the landlords next year if all goes well, so I really would love to have a good relationship with the landlord. I'm not trying to be difficult, I wrote. I'm trying to be the best tenant they have had ever. So it feels like I need to tread carefully here. I don't want to let non-working amenities and necessities that are clearly part of what I'm paying to rent, slide and not get taken care of. But then again, I am loath to be the squeaky wheel tenant as well. I just wish the landlords would step up and take responsibility like they always should do as a good landlord anyway. Is that too much to ask? Anyway, I'm drawing a card this morning to shed some light on how I should be reacting to this situation. So heads up everyone, this was a journal entry I wrote yesterday that was basically item 1. I wrote a whole usually when you do a reading, people who are describing that reading to you and kind of labeling the placements of cards, they'll give you maybe 1 or 2 words to describe what a card is representing. Here, in a flow-based reading where it's all about inner dialoguing, this process of writing this paragraph was actually a very important part of the reading. So, for every item on your list of experiences that you're listing that you want more information about, you can do this. You can write as much as you want about each of these items. And then when you draw that card, you've really thought this card through, that your energy in that moment of choosing what your reflection is just up and really synced into this issue because you've gone through this writing process, okay? So here's the result I got for that. And this again was kind of, how to really deal with this landlord issue when I had 3 appliances break on me in 1 week, and really major appliances, the jacuzzi and the heating system. So, the answer was the 6 of Wands. And I'm just going to read you what I wrote yesterday, and then I'm going to give you an update on what happens, and that's going to help you see how that situation relates to this card as the tarot's recommendation for what I do, and then how that all played out later on in the day. Okay, so the tarot's answer to me was the 6 of Wands. To me, the 6 of Wands appearance here suggests that I should be more confident and victorious, as the card is often interpreted. Emphasizing the 6's energies, I would say, is going to take some rebalancing and harmonizing. These are both themes that the appearance of 6's in tarot often indicate a need for. The suit of Wands indicates the energy of the suit of fire, meaning that a less passive approach is best here. The Wands are one of the 2 masculine suits, so is generally quite an action-driven suit. So I need to not back off here by the looks of it, but keep all my communications harmonizing at the same time. Right now these words are being spoken to me on this subject in this answer. You need to communicate from a place of abundance, but a place of respect for yourself and your rights too. This is true generosity, rather than a fake generosity that ends up making you feel taken advantage of. True abundant generosity in this situation is to yourself. You need to be abundantly generous to yourself, meaning that you ask your landlords to behave in a way that is generous to you, just as you have an approach of generosity to them. Expect to be treated well and insist on being treated well, but through very peaceful communication. And at the end there I wrote, okay, tarot, I got it, I'll give that a try. So just so you know, that's pretty much what ended up happening today. Being that it was Mercury Retrograde, of course, just before it was like a whole day had gone by since I had reached out to the landlords that morning, and I was starting to really get nervous about their non-responsiveness, I got a message, a text, and a voicemail from the landlord explaining that his phone had been broken this weekend, which is, of course, a very typical Mercury retrograde kind of problem to happen. And he was great, and he got on all three things right away. We got some service technicians' numbers to him, and he's communicating back with me about that today. And the whole tone of the phone call when I got on, I was remembering this card, this reading, when I got on that phone call. When I answered him, when he called me back, we missed each other a couple of times, and he ended up calling me back. I picked up the receiver and I made sure to visualize the Six of Wands before I said anything else. Because what this card reminds me of is to stand in my power, in my fire power, right? But come from a place of victorious harmony and abundant generosity. You know, the people who are standing victorious in these images here are not people who are going to be anything other than in abundant generosity, right? So I had that going in, and the call then started on a very friendly tone. I checked my upset, I checked my feeling that I needed to, you know, overly protect myself, like someone was already taking advantage of me. I checked that and I said, actually, we don't know that you're being taken advantage of. It's just starting to feel like that might be coming up here. And be careful, because you've been taken advantage of before. So I had that up, but I kept it in check, and I started that conversation in the most Six of Wands manner that I could. Very abundant, very generous, very friendly. And he reciprocated, and everything is being done really nicely now, and full lines of communication just opened right back up. So that's how that kind of played out in the rest of the day, and that can show you kind of the effect of taking that Six of Wands stance at that choice point. But the beautiful thing about the tarot and about doing readings like this is when you actually get to that choice point after you've done a reading, you recognize that you're at that point, and you become very conscious, if you get good at this, of what your choices are in that moment. So the ability to do the reading before something happens gives you more recognition and awareness of when you are at those choice points. It could be the manner in which you're communicating to someone, like was the case with me. So that's kind of the first one. And then the second one that I wanted to show you, I put an IOU slip on this, and I'm rather than reading this, because I don't want this training to go too long, I want to just kind of say, you know, what this is about. So I was feeling like, oh my goodness, you know, if the landlords don't comply here, this could become a very expensive home maintenance year for me, because, you know, I'll have to get an alternate source of heat, and I don't want to live without a broken jacuzzi here for a year. I'm trying to figure out a way to pay for that in my head now, because I've already decided that the landlords are not going to be compliant. And it spurred me wanting to get in touch with a few people who owe me several $1,000s and have not paid me back. And, you know, and what I'm recognizing in this moment when I'm journaling this little paragraph on this page, this is my item 2, right, is that, you know, this is kind of a pattern, and it's making me feel mistrusting of people. Like nobody will ever follow through and actually, you know, pay me back, or, you know, be true to their word. And so it's spurring all of these feelings. I think I said down here, I think they've forgotten. And the last sentence here, I guess I'll read to you. The last sentence is, I hate saying no to help friends, but then I am allowing myself to feel taken advantage of, and that's worse than having to say no. So I'm drawing a card to help me figure out how to handle this situation. And what I'm journaling about saying no to is, what happens when someone asks me for money now? Do I have to start saying no? you know, because that's how it's feeling. You know, I've got to take care of myself. I might need to pay for my jacuzzi. And, you know, so that's what that little journal was about. And so I drew a card for this idea of, okay, the other bit, that this trigger of, you know, feeling taken advantage of in Mercury retrograde is triggering for me, is this deal with the landlord. I'm having trouble reacting to that properly, and I got a good card on that. And then this one about lending money to friends and not being paid back. That was triggering a feeling of feeling taken advantage of in me. So here's what I got. I got the Ace of Pentacles. And I'll read you what I wrote here as the answer. So this is basically how should I be reacting and treating and approaching this situation of these friends who owe me money? What should the manner of my reaction be? And the tarot answered the Ace of Pentacles. So aces generally reflect new opportunities and new beginnings. And the suit of pentacles describes those experiences in life with a very tangible quality to them, like finances, money, health, and place. So this card is essentially telling me that I need a new approach completely to how I deal with friends and money. It actually doesn't suggest that I should expect to be paid back, but instead suggests a new way forward as the solution. So in essence, here's what the tarot is saying here. Don't get bogged down in the past. What is done is done. What is important is to let these feelings go, because when you let go of how you are feeling about the past, you become able to more clearly perceive the future path and begin acting and reacting appropriately in a way that is supportive of you moving into a time where your friendships can coexist in shared, abundant financial opportunity again. It's just that you need to remember what this feels like in order to start vibrating with the frequency of new financial opportunities again, instead of the frequency of feeling the lack of what people owe you. So this week, try to make a point of it. Remind yourself over and over about what a wealth of financial opportunity you now have before you. Flood out all those crummy vibes of he owes me this, she owes me that, with all the awesome opportunity is all around me vibes instead. This shift is going to make things so much easier for you to handle. You'll be amazed. So that was the interpretation I gave to that. And hopefully both of those little prescriptives there with the Six of Wands and the Ace of Pentacles might also be incredibly valuable to you if you're also dealing with how to handle this doormat syndrome feeling that comes up during Mercury retrograde. The third card that I would then pull in a flow process reading for this would usually be, you know, so there's a prompt, and then, you know, the querent will list some things that they want some more information on. We can, you know, draw a card for each of those situations that they list. And then the next thing I would like you to do, if you're going through a flow process reading like this and you've just drawn a card for, you know, certain situations that you're in, that you've listed, after you've got cards out for those situations, how about this as a third card? So this is just a natural evolution of that flow process, because what we're trying to do here ultimately is change some sort of state of mind or frequency in the individual. We want to do that in the reading because the reading is a healing session. So the third card that I pulled is a card that describes the common theme of both of these situations. A theme that I need to recognize as a pattern, okay? So when you have some clear examples of a situation occurring and recurring in different situations, but kind of in, you know, kind of they're different situations, but they feel like the same thing, right? So that's basically what we're up against when we're trying to do something like, you know, stop feeling like a doormat, even when you don't need to feel like a doormat anymore, is we need to recognize the pattern. And the pattern here, in the third card I pulled, is represented by the tarot card known as Judgment in a regular deck of cards. And the Judgment card came up reversed to me. So this was the interpretation that came through for Judgment reversed as the common theme. So have a check here as you listen to this and see if judgment reversed sounds like it might be the common thread in your own experiences of doormat syndrome. The thing that has ultimately caused you to feel taken advantage of in these situations is your lack of good judgment. What you need to get better at overall is your level of discernment before you create these lackful situations in the first place. Of course, hindsight is 20/20, but try to notice when you are in some way forcing a situation to resolution in order to feel in control. When you force like this without first being real enough to recognize whether or not your behaviors allow life to unfold in a natural way, you are essentially burying your head in the sand, denying others a chance to see situations clearly by stepping in and being proactive for them. When you do this, it impairs their ability to fully gain the experience that karma is trying to set forward for them. At this point, your intuition will tell you whether you are truly helping others or whether you are operating out of an impulse to control. You just need to check in with your intuition and ask and be real for yourself when you are looking at the answers you get. Don't ignore the answers. Be honest about them. Don't kid yourself. Simply checking in with yourself and honoring your own intuition in the future is going to help you avoid feeling taken advantage of. And then the fourth card that I would recommend drawing in a flow process reading, and this is kind of the conclusion card, is it's going to tell me a bit more about the goal here. So as I navigate all these situations that I've drawn cards on in this flow process reading, this card is going to help to steer me in the correct direction with my responses and my actions. If I have a card that represents my goal, that's what that goal card can be used for. So what exactly am I aiming for here is the question when you're drawing this card. What should I be creating instead of situations where I feel taken advantage of? What is the alternative? And the tarot's answer for us was the King of Cups. The King of Cups. Here are two cards that I really love that represent the King of Cups in a couple of different decks. The one over on the right is a deck, what is this deck? It's the Hanson Roberts Tarot. And the colored pencil illustrator here is the same illustrator that color penciled the Universal Weight Tarot as well. But I've always really liked her King of Cups. And then the Guardian of Water card over on the left is actually from Joanna Powell Colbert's amazingly beautiful deck, the Gaian Tarot. So definitely check that one out too. And that's their variant on the King of Cups. In the Gaian Tarot, they call it the Guardian of Water. Mastery of emotional state is what the King of Cups is all about, always. This is both what you want to cultivate in yourself as your goal, and it's also a quality to look for in others. Never has it been more important to strive for emotional mastery. This doesn't necessarily mean being on top of your emotions in a controlling sense, but rather striving for emotional awareness first. So what exactly are you feeling anyway? After paying attention to your feelings, figure out mature behaviors that both honor your emotions at the same time as not subjecting others to your feelings, but rather simply expecting an interaction that is a harmonizing, healthy experience for you emotionally while being very respectful of others' feelings too. So that's the goal card. So when I picked up the phone with my landlord, in that example I gave you, and I had the Six of Wands image in my head, I knew that was what had been prescribed as sort of the energy to cultivate in that conversation. But I was using my connection to this King of Cups energy, this emotional mastery state that I was developing within me was what allowed me to take that pause rather than just jumping into emotional reaction right away. If I'd have just gone in with my initial emotional reaction, the call probably would have been terrible. As it was, I pulled on this guardian of water energy, got into my emotional mastery, and focused on the Six of Wands card. So that's how I used the goal card, because the goal in any situation here is to act through that manner of emotional mastery. And I think that's probably true for many people experiencing the fallout of any sort of doormat syndrome in their lives. It all really comes to emotional mastery. So the goal card I wanted to share with all of you guys, because I think that actually is a really great goal card overall for any situation with anyone dealing with the doormat syndrome sort of issue. It really is kind of about emotional mastery, ultimately. So, really and truly, there were plenty of tarot cards that could have come up in a deck of tarot cards that would have indicated that I was actually being taken advantage of. There are a couple in there where I think if they'd have come up, I would have gone, oh my God, I really am being taken advantage of. I would have had that feeling if the devil had come up, or the Five of Pentacles, or actually any of the fives. The Eight of Swords would have made me feel that way as well, and a few others would have very clearly indicated that. But overall, this reading ended up with cards that pulled me in a completely different direction, a direction that instead points out to me a few ways to interpret my situation differently and not fall into that trap of martyrdom. There's nothing that will shut a person's impulse to create, generate wealth, or be adventurous and creative. Nothing's going to destroy that more than feeling taken advantage of, because the whole energy of that feeling pulls us in to protect ourselves. And instead, the cards that came from this reading spoke to how to change my state into a more expansive, abundant, creative one, where being taken advantage of is simply not possible anymore. So the process of this flow-centered reading, flow style choice centered reading that I've just kind of guided you through, and you could do your own, kind of structured the same way I structured the one here, is going to lead you to a place where whatever has been making you feel taken advantage of ultimately won't have that power over you anymore. Being taken advantage of is simply not going to be possible. Maybe you need to go through this process, every day in a healing sort of setting where the goal of the entire, series of readings over a lapse of days is to change your state so that you're checking in with this feeling and healing from this feeling. Maybe daily you do this reading if being taken advantage of has been a real issue in your past. So I want to give you just a little bit more information about flow style choice centered readings, because one of the things that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking more clients for readings with me. So quite a few people ask me about my style of reading, what to expect if you come into a reading with me, and I usually tell them that it is a choice-centered method that actually empowers you as a querent and shows you not just what is, but probably, as you saw going through this reading with me, more importantly, what you can do about that. Right? So more and more, I'm beginning to describe the process of bringing most of the readings I do forward as this flow process that is also choice-centered. And the flow process, again, means that the reading evolves as we explore with you in the dialogue and the conversation of the session. So more questions kind of arrive when we dive into this dialogue, and the reading provides the answers but also provokes much more insightful questions, so the session sort of builds layers as it continues. So thanks so much for joining us today. That was essentially the first ever episode of an audio cast that I'll be putting out for the Almanac of the Spirit. So I'd love to hear what you think of that. And then I have some offers for everyone, just things that I have on sale in my courses and readings, offerings that are just good this week. So I'm just briefly going to run you through those. Essentially, each of these offers that I have here is discounted for a time, and enrollment is a limited time because you get some special one-on-one benefits with me in each of these packages. So they're just live this week. A lot of them have expirations on Wednesday at midnight for signing up with them. And then often there's an early bird that might be ending on Wednesday. but a fuller deadline, like a more final deadline on all of these, is actually Sunday night, which is when each of these programs will actually close. So I want to be sure that you're aware of all of these things that are just on sale this week. I'm going to quickly go through them, but if you want to go ahead and find the link, should be somewhere on the page you're viewing this video, to get more information about all of these offers. There's a place to click through and actually purchase them, and you'll see it on the page you're viewing this video on probably. So the first one that I have on sale and special offer this week is my early enrollment package on the Chakra Intuition System. The introductory package for the Chakra Intuition System course is on sale for $108 until Wednesday at midnight. And you can learn more at the link on this page if that sounds interesting for you. Essentially, it is going to give you over $400 of bonus services and classes for free if you enroll here before Sunday. So you're going to either get this for $108 or $147 this week, depending on when on the week you purchase, and then you get all of these bonuses as well. But this offer expires on Sunday. After that, it won't be available any longer. So you can click through on the link to learn more about that and order that. We also have a live session of our Tarot for Beginners course that's going to be recorded this week. That's on sale for $75 until Wednesday at midnight, and it's enrolling through Sunday for $108. We have an enrollment in a special one-time online workshop. That workshop is called Living Your Authentic Life: Inspiration, Energy Activations, and Intuitive Sessions for Congruence with the Higher Self. And that's going to be a 3-hour live online workshop via webcast on Saturday, October 25th from 9 till noon Pacific. The enrollment here is limited for just like 10 people is really all we have room for in this one, because we do so much live work with you. So enrollment is limited to 10 on this, and it's $45. So that's going to close Sunday or whenever we reach 10. So you can go ahead and sign up for that and click through on the link to learn more about all of these. And also, I've got a couple of my reading packages on sale for you this week. So the reading that we demoed this week, a choice-centered flow-style reading on any subject via phone, Skype, and email with me, is on sale for $90, down from $120. That's just through Wednesday night. So you can click through to order a reading with me, or you can become one of my VIP reading clients, and that gives you a full reading every month for a whole year. So that's a really great way to do some more immersive work, and that's on sale right now for $75 a month, down from $120 a month. So you need to reserve that this week also to get that deal. I have a couple of openings in that program. Okay, so that's all from me this week. Thanks for joining me for Almanac of the Spirit's first ever audiocast series, and I'll be sending out another lesson or class like this next week also, and just kind of an update that hopefully is useful to you, like this one has been, hopefully, and you'll be receiving that next week, and that'll be episode 2. So thanks so much for following me, guys. Hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.